I just had a conversation with a student today after class. He's a young black man in Southern California at a time when the news is full of people who look like him getting killed. And so
Mm,
I asked him, I said, A, how are you? And
right.
B, I want to hear from you during class because as a 44-year-old white guy, I don't have anywhere near the experiences that you do or your classmates
Right.
do or somebody else my age who's of a different skin tone. So I want to have those types of conversations with you. What do you take into your reporting, and how do you make sure that A, recognize your bias as a
Right.
23-year-old white man? Uh, how do you recognize, what
1993, baby. Whatever
what
it was.
kinds
Yeah.
of what kinds of biases do you make sure that, hey, I am I'm recognizing this, I'm taking it into my reporting so that it can be informed reporting and not biased reporting.
Right. I mean, so like, yeah, like acknowledge who you are. Right. I mean, I am a 34-year-old white man who was born in raised in Agora Hills, California, which is a uh, upper middle class suburb. Raised around a lot of other Jewish people. I'm Jewish myself. It was not a particularly diverse area in terms of racial issues. I went to the USC, which is a nice school, but has a certain bent to it. And people come from a certain world. And then I was in the frat system there, which is even more that way
Right.
than, I mean, that is the sort of stereotype of what USC is.
And first
And
job, San
so,
Diego, also
yeah,
not the most diverse in the world, right?
yeah. So, like, I recognize that my life experience is different than somebody who grew up in other neighborhoods. Part of what I feel really fortunate to have spent, a decade as a field reporter, in which I think is one of the best jobs possible in terms of recognizing your biases. Because what you do as a field reporter is you are in a different neighborhood every single day. And mostly, frankly, because of the nature of the way that local news is, you're mostly in not so great neighborhoods because you're oftentimes covering crime or other issues like that. And so you are interacting with people that you would never interact with. I mean, I've been amazed. And one of the biggest takeaways I have from my time as a field reporter is how these different communities never interact or almost never interact. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in Watson Willowbrook working with an organization called the Drew Childhood Development Corporation, which does early childhood education for kids in that community. I volunteer with them. I host their event every year. I've profiled them. And I've talked to those kids and the parents. And most of those kids have never been to the beach. Never been. This place is 3 or 4 miles from the beach.
Yeah.
They've just never been. And I can guarantee you that most people who live at the beach have never been to Watts, just a few miles away. I mean, you look at downtown Los Angeles, these massive high rises, all the money there, and all the people that are living and working in beautiful suits with nice cars coming in and out of there. And 2 blocks away is Skid Row,
Yeah,
and they're
literally
like
in the
lack of,
shadows of all that money.
and there's no interaction between either ever. And so part of, I think, what was great about being a field reporter is it forces you to go there and meet people and understand them and hear them. And what you realize when you're out in the field, which I miss doing all this reporting now via Zoom, is the story that doesn't make it on the camera, the story that you aren't necessarily telling, but somebody comes up to you off camera and tells you about their life, tells you about their school, tells you about their kid, tells you about what's going on, which gives you a sense of sort of where the community is and the heart and soul of where people are. And I learned so much of what I don't know in that process, and made a lot of friends in that process, and try to go out of my way to hear people out. I mean, it's been interesting, Aaron. I'm sure you agree with this, that in recent weeks we've talked about the issue of anti-Asian hate, and on our show we decided to bring on somebody to talk about that every single night for a week straight. And that is a community which historically has been kind of quiet about a lot of things. But when they started to open up about their experience, it was like opening up the floodgates of years of pain. I think it was similar for the African American community after George Floyd. It was similar for women after Me Too and the Harvey Weinstein story. And what you recognize when you really start to actually listen to people is that there has been so much systemic inequality in so many different aspects, whether it be African American, Hispanic, Asian, female, gay, all these different groups that for so long have just sort of accepted being discriminated against, that are now starting to feel empowered. But there's a lot of pain that's coming to the surface. And it's like the whole country's going through kind of a collective therapy. And then there's pushback, right? The pushback of white people that feel threatened, that feel like they've been in power for a long time, and that are pushing back. And that really, really, in addition to technology changes, I think is one of the biggest, most profound stories of our time.